And our next speaker is Mr. Russ Brown, and next up will be Dr. Dean Baker. Good afternoon.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, my name is Russ Brown. I'm with the Labor Relations Institute, and I truly appreciate the opportunity to contribute our views to this proposed rule. Before getting to the substance of the proposed rule, I think it's important to address the need for it. Historically, the board election process has been very efficient. In 2010, more than 95% of the elections were closed within 56 days, well above your current target. Compare this to the board's experience with resolving unfair labor practices, where in 2010, the board resolved these cases nearly 14% slower than in 2009. It is also important to point out that the board's processes over 7,000 unfair labor practice charges per year, while handling less than 2,000 election cases. While we agree that seeking efficiency is a worthy goal, it is curious that the board would start with the election process. Focusing on efficiency, resolving unfair labor practices has nearly 4 times more leverage and is where the board's own data shows that it is moving in the wrong direction. Instead, the board is focusing its limited agency resources on the election process where the targets are being met and exceeded. The proposed rule seeks special comments on electronic signatures and blocking charges. Allowing electronic signatures is a terrible idea. There are plenty of examples and situations where employees were tricked into signing physical authorization cards by being told they were something else. The likelihood of confusion and even abuse is much greater with electronic signatures. Checking a box on a website is done as an afterthought today. Ask yourself, when was the last time you actually read the software license before you updated Microsoft Word? Reforming the process around blocking charges is an excellent idea. The current process is abused and frustrates and disenfranchises voters. In 2010, less than 5% of elections required the board resolutions of objections. Casting the ballots, even if they are impounded, is far superior than delaying the elections on the off chance that the charges might have enough merit to warrant other actions. Fast-tracking investigations and resolutions of the blocking charges is also a great idea. As discussed above, this should be the focus of the board's rulemaking if the true goal is to improve efficiency of the process. Next, I'd like to address the aggressive time targets in the proposed rulemaking. The board's proposal wants all pre-election unit issues resolved within 5 business days or else, hold a hearing to resolve them. Let me relate a story about my own personal experience to help you understand the tremendous burden you're putting on employers. Several years ago, I was the head of a small transportation company. My business was spread across 16 western states, and I did not have a true HR department or a labor lawyer. At one point, I had an extended trip planned away from the office. After spending an entire day in transit, I found out that the TWU had filed a petition to represent the workers in one remote location. My travel plans were well known, and I don't think it is a coincidence that the petition was filed on the day I left. I had no idea what this petition meant, and I had no choice but to cut my trip short. It took me 4 business days to just get home and hire a lawyer. It would have been impossible for me to present the evidence at a hearing about an appropriate unit the next day. Our unit issues were complex. The proposed time targets are so aggressive that they will lead to mistakes, poor judgments, and are likely to complicate rather than simplify unit issues. The requirements to furnish the list of voters include phone numbers and email addresses. In 2 days after the direction of election is simply not enough time. Just consider my personal experience. We did not have a centralized human resource system, and we were spread out among many states. We had questions about who was in and who was out of the unit. Whether talking about small organizations or even a big company, it can often take more than a day just to get a list to review. Getting this list right is too important to rush. It is wrong. If it's wrong, it can overturn an election. The current 7 days is a good balance between getting the list quick and getting it right. The board should provide some type of opt-out process for employees who wish to protect their private contact information from unions and other allied groups. In every campaign I have been involved in, I have had workers express to me that they don't like having their personal information given to unions without their permission. The Can Spam Act and the National Do Not Call List require organizations to provide opportunities for citizens to opt out of solicitations. The NLRB rules should provide a similar opportunity for employees. The core change in the proposed rulemaking is shifting many of the unit decisions until after the election. This is the cure in search of a disease, since the vast majority of elections today occur around a month after the petition is filed, even deciding all the unit issues in advance. The proposed rule says that 20% of the voters in the unit may be undecided at the time that the ballots are cast. That is like saying that we don't know whether the votes in Texas and California will count in the next presidential election. Some employees may decide not to vote because they don't want to be included with others who may or not be in the final unit. Workers have the right to know who will be in their bargaining unit on the day they vote. Increasing efficiency is worthy go, but not for the sole purpose of reducing the time of the election. Pushing most unit decisions until after the election disenfranchises voters and is counter to the purpose of the act. Any rule change needs to be about what is best for the workers, not what is best for unions. The board should not implement these dramatic rule changes.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Questions?
I've got two diverse questions. You can defer to me this time. I got two diverse questions about your comments, which are very helpful. One is, you describe your own situation, being out of town, petition is filed. It seems to me that's special circumstances, and the rule provides that hearing will ordinarily commence within 7 days, except for special circumstances. So I guess I wonder if you have any thoughts. We've specifically invited comments on the question of how we phrase precisely the exceptions to standard practice if we go forward with these proposals. Do you have any thoughts about that? What would be an appropriate way to account for the kind of situation you describe, which is somewhat exceptional, and to make sure that you are accommodated in that situation?
Well, I'm glad to know that those years ago that you would have thought that was a special circumstance and given me a break. I'm not sure your regional director would say the same, though, under the way that you've got the proposed rules. And of course, at the time that you are looking into what implements a special circumstance, there will be many different reasons for many different organizations. I think that a company like mine that was as spread out as it was, and with no true HR department, no centralized department, in my particular case, I had to not only get back from the trip to the home offices to get things together, which took 4 days, I also had to get to the state that this situation was taking place in. So, as I stated, under the proposed circumstances, I couldn't have made it. It just wouldn't have happened. 7 days seems to be the perfect balance that we currently have in place.
You have another question?
Again, a little bit outside the scope of our proposal, but your concern about employees receiving unwanted communications and your suggestion that we adopt a kind of a no-call concept. Would you extend that to the captive audience context? That is, you think employees have a similar right not to hear unwanted messages from the employer?
And you probably know that I am a persuader at this point in my life, and I go into these meetings a lot. And although you call them captive audience meetings, I've never held an employee in a meeting. The employer has a right, under HC of the Act, to have his freedom of speech. And even at that, his freedom of speech is greatly reduced. And in many cases, the way it is, that is the only place that the employer can have those conversations. By and large, my experience says that unions, and in my personal situation, says that unions have a stealth campaign taking place long before the companies ever know what's going on. So they've had their access to employees, and they've got their means as well. And just like in any other election, if somebody comes up to your door, you don't have to let them in unless you want to.
Thank you.
What is this transportation company that you had that spanned several states? What was your principal way of communicating with your employees? Well,
I had several. Of course, my company predates a lot of the technology today, but a lot of things that I did, specific things, I would use safety memos as paycheck stuffers. I would send out written memos via fax, later via the computer, things like that. And I had regular conference calls with managers where I asked them to have meetings with employees and convey employment-related messages.
Mm-hmm. So when you said later via computer, you're talking about email or intranet?
Well, I did not have an intranet. So yes, I would email managers, a bulletin to put up or something along those lines.
Okay. Did this transportation company have an employee handbook that discussed?
Yes, it did.
Did it discuss unions in that handbook?
Oh, no. There was no discussion of unions in my employee handbook. In fact, my employee handbook was like 2 pages, so it was very, very, very lean.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And did you go about training of your managers as to labor relations?
We had an ongoing positive labor relations training to where, we trained our managers on how to be good, efficient leaders for their people and to be an advocate for their people and service our customers. As far as labor relations as it pertains to a union campaign, only once I had that petition filed did I give any managers any training in, what they call the TIPS rules and things like that we do, that you see so much of today.
Okay. How many petitions would you say you experienced while you had this company?
While I had the transportation company,
Yeah.
I had the one petition. That's it.
Okay. And what happened with that? Was there an election?
Yes, there was.
How did that come out?
The employees voted against unionization.
I see. Thank you.
Could I just ask you one question, because I don't think you told us at the beginning, but the Labor Relations Institute is what?
The Labor Relations Institute is a positive employee relations firm. We actually work both with unionized and non-unionized companies. We're probably best known for our work in union avoidance during campaigns.
You give advice to companies and how
We
to...
give advice. We have persuaders. We have over 100 former we have 84 former union organizers that will go to a company and say, give that side of the union as well. And, and how things work, kind of like Mr. Maritas was stating. He knows the playbook, so do my guys.
So you have your playbook?
Those guys have a playbook, yes.
Thank you for your contribution. You have
One
another
more question
Sure.
on that. Part of your company's routine or a routine part of your company's business would be to go to the regional offices to see what petitions are filed, would it not?
Well, you guys have become so good with putting things on the internet. We don't have people that go into the regional offices any longer, but we do get. In fact, LRI Online is probably one of the leading sources of keeping up with just about every scrap of paper you guys push.
Okay, and so from that you can solicit business.
We have individuals that solicit business from that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here with us today, sharing your thoughts.